Hi, Emilie. So nice to see you here.
Hi, Libby.
Hi. Excited to be on this Piping Hot with the board. I know we're both board members, and it's great to connect with you here. And we're going to be talking about the fragrance industry today and trends that we're seeing. I'll introduce myself. So I am the co-founder and creative director of a fragrance brand called Cerato. We make clean fragrances based on aromatherapeutic benefits, so sort of in the wellness space. And we just launched a couple months ago. So that's my world. I'll hand it over to you to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, congrats on the launch. On my
Thank
end,
you.
I'm product development consultant. I've been working in the beauty industry for over 15 years at L'Oréal, Coty, and was leading product development for the Labo for over 10 years. And I moved on to consulting. So I work with fragrance and beauty brands on two things: on product marketing, so really the claims, the product positioning, who it's speaking to, and then the product development, so the actual fragrance development, formula development, packaging development. And in addition to that, I just started a brand called Maison Mascarell, which is a sustainable home care brand. So I'm kind of excited that we are on this live together because you just launched a brand recently as well. So I'm kind of curious, as we're thinking about fragrance trends, how that has inspired you in terms of like your launch. Did you kind of like look at the trends to think about where to go, or on the opposite, did you kind of like looked at the trend but also decided to kind of like go your own way? So kind of curious, as it's a hot topic, like how you felt about the fragrance trends and what you saw on the market you find interesting.
Yeah, so similar to you, I also worked in the beauty industry for the past 8 years on the creative operations side, so overseeing creative campaign work and production. And I was mostly working in cosmetics and skincare. And as a creative person and photographer myself, I saw an interesting opportunity within the fragrance space to, from a visual perspective, be, a bit more evocative, and there's kind of an opportunity to have richer storytelling. So I became interested in it. And then, I think when we're looking at the broader fragrance trends, what we started to see over the pandemic, which was really interesting, was that fragrance started to spike, and it started to sort of excel beyond what we were seeing with cosmetics and skincare at the time. And I think people were starting to relate to fragrance in a different way. I think that, a lot of people started to realize that fragrance can do more for you than just make you smell good. And people started to buy fragrance for wellness purposes, which was super interesting. So I think that trend started to pick up during the pandemic, and we've seen sort of an unprecedented spike within the industry since then, and it's continued to grow. I think I read a statistic recently that 71% of fragrance consumers are looking for scents that lift their mood. So it's such an interesting shift in how people used to wear fragrance. I think we're used to this sort of one signature scent that has been kind of how people use fragrance for a long time, wearing it on occasion. But now I think there's this trend towards fragrance wardrobing and buying different scents for different moods and really creating a collection of scents that you're wearing all the time. And I think specifically with Gen Z, we're seeing this trend quite a lot. So I think that was sort of the initial intrigue around the space, was that fragrance can actually do more for you, and it can contribute to your state of mind and your wellness. And especially as you're looking at fragrances that are, clean or based on aromatherapeutic principles, like I think that space has also become a huge trend. We see a lot of clean beauty represented within, again, the cosmetic space and skincare, but I think fragrance has kind of been the last frontier and is catching up still. But I think we're seeing that quite a lot more, and seeing people more interested in clean fragrances. So that's also been an interesting trend. And I know for you, you know, you are focused a little bit more in home fragrance. So I'm kind of curious within that space, because, you know, we're making, and for my brand, we're making fragrance oils. So it's, you know, personal fragrance. But I think in home fragrance, we've also seen some trends within those categories. So curious kind of what
I would say it's always interesting. And I often have clients ask me what are the fragrance trends. And I feel like, you know, first I would say that definitely COVID has kind of like changed how people appreciate fragrance and like the impact on the mood and the wellness. And I'm all for it. And I think it's nice because you also kind of like look at fragrance in a different way. But I would say that what is also a bit, you know, has changed drastically is that you have trends all over the spectrum, like from, you know, the skin scent to the Middle East hoodie scent to, you know, it keeps varying. Like the gourmand, now we have the neo gourmand. It keeps evolving, and you know. So the way I looked at it on my side, on my brand, was kind of like trying to be aware of the trends, because I think you need to know where the trends are, but kind of like try to create something that really spoke to me. And to me, like I'm French, so that was like very linked to my French roots, and then really kind of like building it up with the sustainability that is like so important for me. But I try not to kind of like look too much at the trends, because I think they keep evolving at a pace that is a little bit insane. I think the wellness is like an ongoing trend, and I think then in terms of ingredients, it's just like evolves in all the directions, whereas before you had like a real kind of like one trend that you could say in terms of fragrance. But I think what's interesting though with that, and with how, you know, people are also using fragrance today, is that it's also kind of like changes the format that people use, because you're not going to use your signature scent and your big bottle of 100 ml anymore. So you might be buying more travel sizes of gift sets. So I feel like that's kind of like very connected to what you did, where you were like a smaller kind of like on the go format, because you're not really committing to one fragrance. Right. You're kind of like looking at a collection too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's why we love the roller balls and working with fragrance oils, is because you get to try a lot of different scents that way, and you can change them kind of like you would using a lipstick or something. You know, it sort of becomes this beauty essential, this thing that you're taking with you everywhere, and using almost as a wellness tool, you know, to kind of apply throughout the day. And, you know, there's so much science that's also behind the impact that scent has on your mood. And so I think that's a really interesting space. And we're starting to see that pop up with like this functional fragrance trend in general. You know, I think brands are starting to talk about that. And I think the consumers are catching on as well, which is amazing. And yeah, I think there's a lot of niche brands that have popped up. I think interestingly, there's also this trend on TikTok with sort of blind buying. And, you know, I think people are sort of just more curious, I think, about scent, and are really kind of like leaning into it, and sort of just becoming inspired by what they're seeing, you know, without even smelling it, which is so interesting.
It's crazy, right? And I love that, you know, there's also like the layering. So beyond what you can buy, you might layer different fragrances as well. So I feel like it's such like a vibrant category. And interestingly, you know, even in terms of sales, you see like sales growing like that luxury fragrance space, where there's a lot of TikTok influence, but there's also a growth in like smaller size and value size and like body mist and hair mist. So it's kind of interesting, because you have like the category kind of like stretching on both ends. And it's definitely been evolving so much, I feel like, over the last few years.
Yeah, certainly.
All right. I mean, I feel like we could talk about trends forever, because there's so much happening every day.
Yeah.
And this has been so much fun. So thanks everyone for tuning in. For those watching, you can connect with us on LinkedIn. This time next week, there will be another pair of board members that will be live on Piping Hot and serving the tea. So stay tuned.
Amazing. Thanks, Emilie.
Thank you.